Hello, everyone. I wish I could be there in the flesh today, but I can't, so I'm happy at least to have the opportunity to be there in a virtual way and to say some of the things that I would have said had I been present. You know, I've been thinking about Wallace a lot this week, of course, and I must say that every time I think of him, I smile. Entering the boardroom for faculty meetings each month, I would always look first for Wallace, catch his eye, and always be rewarded by that flash of a welcoming smile. Once in a while, he would check out what I was wearing and give me a little thumbs up, which absolutely made my day. It was kind of like Philip Roth telling me he liked my writing, you know. And as Kevin Averick will testify also, Wallace loved to laugh. He loved a good joke, and he loved to puncture a stuffy conversation with a well-aimed barb of his own. Does this mean Wallace wasn't a serious person? Obviously not. What it means to me is that the alleged distinction between serious and non-serious behavior was another one of those false dichotomies that Wallace transcended. A constant in his character was this ability and desire to get beyond what some people felt were irreconcilable contradictions or dichotomies. It was essential to his character that he could not be locked into any conventional social role. Here's an illustration that's very close to my own heart. Wallace and gender. When I was courting my partner, Susan, we ran into a little rough water, and I went for advice to Wallace, naturally, since he knew more about women than any other man I've ever met. And he told me two things that have stayed with me ever since, and then in fact Susan and I count them among our favorite sayings. First thing he said was, stop thinking like a man. Think about what she needs. And the second thing he said was, be quiet and listen to her, really listen to her, and you may find out what she needs. Thanks, Wallace. Second illustration, race. The fact that Wallace transcended gender differences in some ways did not mean that he denied his maleness. The fact that he transcended gender, racial differences in some ways, didn't mean that he denied his identity as an African American. I found that out the hard way. Right after I first knew him, I presumed to tell him a joke. I think I was still calling him Wally. I presumed to tell him a joke, a race joke of the sort that progressives feel entitled to tell each other because they're, beyond racism. And I was greeted with a frosty silence. After that, Wallace and I had many deep discussions about the role of race in America. And one thing I understood was that Professor Wallace Warfield, PhD, might have come a long way from the mean streets of New York, where he grew up, but he never forgot who he was. He never forgot that he was an American black man. So when one thinks of Wallace, one thinks of this capacity to transcend differences without denying identity. And that's why I think we can think of him as a gifted practitioner, but a brilliant scholar, a great mediator and peacemaker, but a ferocious advocate of social justice. In fact, Wallace's character really reminds me of that great line of Walt Whitman's, I am large, I contain multitudes. And another line I think is relevant because of his profound egalitarianism. And every atom that belongs to me as well belongs to you. Friends, Wallace's loss is irreplaceable for our Institute and for each of us personally. But it seems to me that our grief is tempered, at least to some extent, by the fact that we incorporate essential aspects of the characters of the people we love into our own personalities. They actually become part of us. Literally, and not just as a matter of speaking, our beloved Wallace is now part of all of us. Amen.